Welcome to YO Today. I'm Paul Pepis, Director of the Oregon Humanities Center. My guest today is Joe Buck, the Vice President for Advancement at the University of Oregon. Prior to joining the UO in September 23, Buck was the Vice President for Development and Alumni Relations at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He has 20 years of higher education fundraising and engagement leadership at Lehigh University, the University of Chicago, and other top universities. Thanks, Joe, for coming on the show. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation. It's great to be here. I've been watching some episodes, and it's fun to be in the chair.
So, belated welcome to the University of Oregon.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So, first, what attracted you to the VP for Advancement job at U of O?
I won't take our full-time answering the question. I'll give you a very high level. It was a few things. So I was a customer first. I have a first-year student. My son is a first-year student here, and he was coming before I was. So my wife and I were customers first, and our first exposure was through his eyes. And it's kind of cool to get to know a place through your son's eyes and him being a student here. And that was combined with the opportunity professionally for me. When I got a call from the search firm, I actually thought it was some friends of mine really kind of punking me might be the right term, right? Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're serious? University of Oregon? My son's going to be a first-year student there. And they said, oh, that's great. And I said, I don't know yet. I have to talk to him. And that kind of threw them off a little bit. Like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, I have to talk to him. So it was truly a place that is nationally ranked and nationally recognized. And what really drove it home for me was the opportunity here to do something and to build a team, something that I like to do, and then meeting Carl, right? Carl gave me some time. He was still in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. You won't surprise you, my job as vice president is as much about fit with the president as it is anything else. And he and I are like-minded in how we think about higher ed, how you try to move places forward. And so a combination of things, right? As I said, really fell in love with the place as a consumer, the opportunity for me professionally to do some things that I think I like to do and have a track record of doing. And then Carl, right? And really trying to partner up with him.
How's your son doing?
He's doing great. I mean, he loves the place. He's learning how to be a college student, which is interesting to watch. And after a few eye rolls, he was like, "It'll be good to know you and Mom are close if I need you." And we said, "Yeah, we feel the same way. It'll be good to know. But you're going to live in a dorm. Yeah. You're doing your own laundry. You're not coming to my house for dinner whenever you want. Like you're going to we're not going to college together. So we made it very clear it was a professional opportunity for me, and it's been going great for him as well.
Great. So how do you, when people say, what do you do? How do you describe the work of Advancement? What do you do?
Yeah. I would say, again, a multifaceted question, but at a high level, I think what we are is a conduit between someone's desire to do something good with their time, talent, or treasure, right, with something that a university needs, right? And I think we're right in the middle of that, right? We do have to represent the university quite often, externally facing, but we also have to try to give people pathways and invitations to engage in the life of the place, and sometimes convince them that their input is valuable and we need it. And again, that's where we need to be creative and invite them in and find pathways for them to come in, right? We sit right at the middle of that. That's ultimately what we do, right? We advance the mission of the place by engaging external constituents. Sometimes they're alums, sometimes they're corporations, sometimes they're athletic fans, right? But if our job is to truly relay the mission and the vision and the aspirations of a place like the University of Oregon to external constituents, and make it as easy as possible for them to engage. And time, talent, and treasure, I don't use those words lightly, right? We do need all three, and that's really what we do at its core. And that's, I would say at a high level, that's what we do when you think about what is the work of Advancement. And there's tiers and layers of, department, college, unit, highest level presidential or university priorities, right? Those would be campaigns. I suspect you're going to ask me about campaigns and where are we going. And, there's a lot that we do, but at its core, right, I think in Advancement, we are that conduit, and which is great because it's really not about us, right? We get to engage with grateful people who want to help a place like the University of Oregon be better, realize its ambition, aspiration. That's what gets me excited every day.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
What your job as VP is.
So I see my job as VP as three core areas, right? One of them is I need to be the chief development officer, right? I need to lead by example. I need to have a track record. I need to be able to work with our highest capacity, highest engaged donors, those that would expect that relationship with Carl, for example, and really work with the donors at the top of the donor pyramid, right? So I need to lead by example. Secondly, I need to be a critical part of Carl's leadership team, right? Part of my job is to help him and be a thought partner for him and the other VPs, my colleagues, as we collectively think about how do we help him to move the university forward. And the last piece, and again, these are not in order, that the last piece for me, Paul, is I need to be the leader of the organization, of the advancement organization. And I need to make sure that the incentives and the metrics and the culture of advancement is where it needs to be so that we can maximize our efforts. And so all those things go together, right? You can't just do one, in my opinion, without actually thinking about all three. Chief Development Officer, I need people to understand that, my first team is Carl's team, and I also need to make sure that the culture and the way that the advancement team functions is an extension of my leadership.
So you've now been here for eight-ish months.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, right when the school year started.
What are some of the things that have impressed you about the University of Oregon?
Gosh, that again, you asked me these questions that could take our whole time together. I would say at a high level, it is a very collaborative environment. It is uniquely, from my perspective, kind of centralized and decentralized. And it's been able to function in a way that I appreciate the way that the deans are willing to collaborate with each other, the VPs collaborate, and even within advancement, right, the way that my staff collaborates. It's also a very caring community. And I don't know if that's an Oregon thing, if it's a West Coast thing, right? I'm from Philadelphia. I carry an East Coast bias pretty firmly on my sleeve. Yeah. And it's interesting to me, to just see how caring the community is. I will tell you also from the parent perspective, watching my son as a first-year student navigate the place and just the way that he's cared for and the way that the faculty and staff and others have helped him to learn what it means to be a first-year college student, couldn't be happier. And the area is beautiful, right? It's really it's a stunningly beautiful area of the country. But specifically, the University of Oregon, for me, it's just this. And I've heard Carl say it, and it's excellent liberal arts type education with some professional schools around it, and it just seems to be a good balance, right? I came from other places where that balance wasn't there, right? The place was either driven solely by undergraduate or a place like University of Chicago, which is heavily biased towards the graduate experience. This is a place that, in my experience, has a nice balance, and I think it just goes back to that collaborative spirit that I've really come to appreciate in a short period of time.
So what's been your focus since you got here in September? I mean, here you get to a new institution. What have you been focused on?
Yeah, I've been focused on mostly aspects of what I would call internal readiness for the next comprehensive campaign for the university. And that's a broad term, internal readiness, but what I would say is it is kind of calibrating where are we in the idea business, right? What are the aspirations and ambitions for the institution, both at Carl's level? Those need to be buoyed by the units, by the deans, by the academic leaders, right? So a bit of a gut check litmus test on, okay, where are we in terms of the ability for the academic leaders to articulate ambition and aspiration and priority? That combined with internal readiness within the development operation, right? We do some things particularly well, and I think we have some opportunity to do some things differently. And so focused on aligning the resources that I have that I think gives us the best chance to, maximize philanthropy from our donors, and engage people and solicit them as soon as possible to maximize philanthropy, right? And so orienting the team to that approach and also trying to orient the academic leadership to what does it mean to have a comprehensive campaign and how does something like that come together. So mostly, internal readiness focused stuff. I've done some fundraising with Carl, right? I mean, as I said to you, what do? I think that's an important part of what I do, and I've been able to do that. But we have, no surprise, the folks that are at the top of the pyramid are being well taken care of, right? There was no fire there. I needed to come in and say no one's paying attention to these people. So it allowed me to gradually meet folks, engage with our top donors, but also pay a lot of attention internally at this point.
So let's just take a step back.
Yeah.
Why is philanthropy important for public universities? Why is that something that public universities need the help of?
Yeah. Well, I think public universities, particularly because of the funding model, right, and the way that the state support in most states, and Oregon particularly, has truly declined, right? I think people would be surprised to know that 6% or so of our budget comes from the state. And so, we, on a lot of dimensions, have to behave like a private university, albeit we're a public one, and for very good reason. I think philanthropy is truly magical and special because of it's not trying to solve a problem today, right? We're not competing with homelessness, hunger, these, right? We could talk a long time about how I personally differentiate charity from philanthropy, right? Philanthropy, you're investing in and trying to solve problems and make possibilities for people you don't know, or you don't know what problems exist yet, right? It's the reason that places like University of Oregon can be around for 150 years and are going to be around for another 150 more. Now, you asked me a very pointed question, why should people invest? I believe that higher education is one of the few great equalizers left in society. Right? And you think about the knowledge creation that happens here every day. You think about the impact that we're having in the lives of 18 to 22-year-old graduates and the career that our graduate students are charting for themselves, again, in the knowledge creation research space, right? People, as a uniquely American thing, because it doesn't happen the same way in other countries, right? Invest in higher ed because of what it provides humankind, right? And they are investing in the good of society, and that's why I truly feel that public universities, particularly with their commitment to the state of Oregon, right? The public commitment that public universities have made. Private universities can be a little, they have other variables that they have to attend to or not, that places like Oregon have to attend to. And we really do engage with people to feel as strongly about it. And again, at their core, they're grateful people, right? And they happen to have resources, and they want to express that gratitude. And what better way than to support a public, flagship university in Oregon to support Oregonians and the world, right? Truly having an impact on humankind every day, and that's why.
So I know that the work of philanthropy is not an easy job. So what are some of the challenges that you face doing this work?
Yeah, well, I think some of the challenges are competition. Right? There is a lot of competition out there for that philanthropic or charitable dollar, right? And you can't argue with homelessness or hunger or these other things, right? Those are really good causes, and they really do need support. So there's competition. I would say politicalization, if I could use a word, right? Everything is politicized these days, and higher ed is not immune from that now, right? I think we were for a while. I think there's a general distrust that people have in institutions, and I think higher ed has been lumped into those institutions. So that also is something that is somewhat complicated. Third thing I would say is, going back to number one, the competition, the generation of people writing checks out of loyalty is gone, right? Those days have come and gone. People want impact, right? They want to know, what is the impact of my $5 gift? And well-asked question, right? They deserve to know. And so we cannot just sit back and assume that graduates are going to give because that's what you do, right? So we've had to reframe and change and talk about the impact of gifts at every level and every size. And so, those are some of the headwinds that we face. I think, at its core, investing in higher ed as a philanthropist is one of the greatest things that anybody can do. And it's a great investment when you think about what you're investing in and what the intrinsic value is and what the actual return is on that investment forever, if you think about an endowment gift, for example.
So let's talk a little bit about what people are investing in. Yeah. So tell us about some of the current priorities for the University of Oregon.
Yeah, there's two sets that come to mind, and I'll say that they're a precursor to a larger set of priorities, right? President Scholes is taking the university through a strategic planning process now. It doesn't mean there are not priorities that we have today that we've kind of thought about and packaged together. And I wanted to pick one, student support and student success is something that's relevant to every aspect of the university. So this was a chance for me to go to all of the deans and academic leaders and say, we want to talk about student success broadly defined, and also give you a space where someone can support your area, but also support student success, right? If you think about some of the priorities that are coming out of the strategic plan, right? 4- and 6-year graduation rates, right? Removing barriers, being a leader in career readiness and career preparation, right? Those are areas that are fundamental to student success. And so can we start to signal to the campus now and the external community, these are things we're going to care about. So we're packaging those things together. And then secondly, we have some capital project priorities that are front and center and really important for this particular moment in time. And again, signaling, I think there'll be other capital projects, but today we have a campus in Portland, right? And different than a building, right? It is a campus and it has capital needs. And so again, making a case for, it's not just about the bricks and mortar, it's about what those buildings enable, right? And what do they stand for? And starting to build arguments and cases for support around why we would ask people to invest in either the Portland campus or secondly, the Knight campus, phase 2, has some funding priorities that it's close to the finish line, but it is at an inflection point where, it's charting a course for what does it mean to complete that building, right? Phase 2, and how does that come together? And so bundling a couple key capital projects along with student success are the highest level priorities from a, if Carl were at the podium kind of thing, right? Those would be the things that he would talk about today.
So you mentioned that we're coming up on the 150th anniversary of the University of Oregon.
Sesquicentennial, that's the word of the day.
So what is the Oregon 150 initiative?
Yeah.
What is that?
I appreciate you asking. The Oregon 150 initiative is the packaging of the aforementioned areas of student support and the capital project. So Carl's investiture is coming up in a few weeks. And I would not be doing my job if I told Carl to go to the podium and tell everyone that we're going to announce our next campaign in 2026 at our 150th anniversary and stay tuned, right? We do have priorities today. And so can we as an institution build a muscle memory, start to build it, right? Get in shape for a much larger comprehensive campaign by rallying ourselves around some initiatives and some priorities today that will be naturally connected to where we're going. And so Oregon 150 is an attempt for us to package the student success priorities, the capital priorities, and say, we have a $500 million goal in these two areas that we would like to close and raise in these two buckets between now and 2026. So it is, like most campaigns, while it's a military word, right, it is a marketing word, right? We have to position and package the university. People do care and ask quite often about what are Carl's priorities, right? People do ask him that. And this is a way to package those in what I think is a cohesive way, as I said, building on where we're going, and also gives us a bit of a bridge between the investiture in May and 2026.
So I know this is probably an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you give us an idea of where we're going in 2026?
Yeah, I can. I think where we're going in 2026 is in terms of priorities or size. Priorities. Size I don't know yet, right? But in terms of priorities, yeah, I would say what we will do is we will have a campaign architecture. These are words that we use that has some university priorities at the top, and I say that very carefully because if you were to ask Carl, he would say they're university priorities, not presidential priorities. He fully expects alignment. He expects them to be truly buoyed by the unit cases for support. Where are we going? I mentioned earlier, we are going to truly need to raise support to alleviate the impediments to 4- and 6-year graduation rates, right? One of the main ones there is financial aid. Yeah. And we have the Oregon Pathways program today, which is very supportive of Pell eligible students. We're exploring, can we expand that beyond Pell eligible and say something like any Oregon resident with just a gross income below, pick a number, $75,000 can come here tuition free. Very powerful statement, right? And so what would that cost? What is that as an idea and ambition and aspiration? And so we're going to go somewhere like that, right? That's something that every unit of this university could get behind.
Sure.
There's certainly career readiness and career preparedness. Yes, there are resources that folks could give to support that effort, but we haven't leveraged our community enough, right? And we need to do so more than some other institutions, some of our peers, right? We don't have a medical school, right? We don't have a college of engineering today. And so we more than other places need to leverage our alumni to take interns, to hire students, to refer students, to really be active in that part of getting our students through, right? We can get them through. Part of that is where they're going to go and get them out and get them prepared to contribute. And so that's both internal and external. Lastly, I would say where we're going is, Carl is working on this now, kind of bucket that he's calling distinctly Oregon, right? Where are the true areas across the university that we can bring together and stand up as places, areas where we can truly be distinctive, right? And that's not at the expense of the other areas. As I said, those units are all going to be right there, right behind it. But are there some things that would rise to the top of all of the things that are happening, where we could truly hang our hat on it as a university and say these are areas where we can be truly distinctive and truly lead? And so those would be the places where we're going at the highest level. And again, supported by the units and priorities at the decanal level or at the academic leadership level. And we have just about something for everyone, right? If you think about my job is to maximize philanthropy, I think you have to lead with asking our donors, what do they care about? What do they want to accomplish with their philanthropy? It's a much more powerful question than here's what we need, right? And I would love to be able to get in front of as many people as possible and ask that question. And I believe we have a lot to offer, right? And so we're going to kind of package that up and get on the road.
So one of the units that reports to advancement is foundation relations. So what does foundation relations do, and why are they important to your unit? Why is it important for you guys to have foundation relations as part of your team?
So building on something I just said, we're going to go out and ask individuals, what do they want to accomplish? You don't have to ask foundations, they know, right? And so the reason that foundations are so important is because they have declared missions and things that they know they want to accomplish. So it's really about finding that alignment and then making that case for things that they can support that are core to their mission that we can play a part of, right? And you don't know what those things are, right? There's you could run the gamut on what different foundations' missions are, right? You have to have the wherewithal to know where you can deliver on that mission or on a part of that mission and make a case for that. But you don't have to do what we call qualification work, right? You don't have to necessarily do the exploration because they tell you on their website what their mission is, right? And so you're already starting from a place where you know that alignment exists. And a lot of the things that foundations fund are core to the mission of the university, right? They generally don't always think about the return. They think about investing in the mission. And so the framing is quite different. And you have all kinds of foundations, right? You have family foundations. You have, when I say local, the Ford Family Foundation as an example. And you have national foundations, right? And you put some resources behind what are those missions, how are there opportunities for us? And again, it's a little bit of a different starting place in terms of the way that you apply versus soliciting, right? There's some technical differences to it, but it is fundamental to sometimes the basic activities of a university, and foundations invest in those things because they also value and realize that these activities are critical to the university moving forward, but also meeting the goals and aspirations of the foundation.
And some of them have a lot of capacity.
Without question.
Yeah.
Without question.
So you mentioned, I think, early in the interview, you mentioned planned giving. So what is planned giving and why is that important?
Oh, well, planned giving is, on the other end of the spectrum of annual giving, right, where someone is writing a gift from income, right, and there's sometimes major giving where someone's making a gift from assets, And then you think about plan giving, which is where someone's making maybe their ultimate gift, right? The ultimate legacy gift, right? A very powerful thing to do is to consider the University of Oregon in your estate plans, right? And it's as simple as putting it in your plan, working with your advisor and letting us know, right? And if we know what it is, we can celebrate it now, right? You can participate in campaigns by doing that, depending on your age. You're too young, but you can participate in supporting the place. There's also charitable gift. There's many vehicles and structures, right? Everything from a gift annuity to a trust. You could have a lead trust where we get the money up front. You could have a remainder trust where we get the money on the back end. The reason plan giving is so important is because it allows someone to leave a lasting legacy at the place, after they leave the earth, right? And it gives them a chance to know in their planning today that the university, something they care about the university, is going to be accounted for forever. And I will tell you, most people balance their giving, right? Most people don't only do a planned gift, right? Most people do a gift now and put their resources to work. They enjoy it now, and they use their legacy gift to cement the impact of that gift in perpetuity. And so it's really critical to the work that we do. I don't have to tell you, you've probably seen the data on the transfer of wealth that is going to happen generationally, right? And so it would be a missed opportunity for us to not ask people to consider the University of Oregon in their estate plans, and it's relatively easy to do.
So another unit that reports to you is the Alumni Association.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with them in your first 8 months.
I just left their board meeting, which was fun. I missed their fall meeting. And their winter meeting, I was in Hawaii for work, and I zoomed into their winter meeting. What I've done with the Alumni Association is really focus them on our non-financial goals. Right. They are really data-driven, and I give Rafe and his team a lot of credit. They really do track by the ones the significantly engaged number of alums, and so we have to think about non-financial goals in the campaign, and they need to help us to really be front and center, the tip of that spear for if we're going to engage alums in career readiness. They have to buy in, and they have to be the voice of that out in the chapters and at all the things that they do, right? They are truly, back where I said at the beginning, in terms of inviting easy pathways for people to engage in the life of the place, that's quite often where it starts, right? And you have to do that. You have to engage all of our alums, right? They all have value to the institution, and we have to find ways to get them involved. Like I said, most of my conversations with the board to date have been, how are we going to think about non-financial goals moving forward, things that we can track and account for.
So, Joe, we just have a couple of minutes left. Sure. This is going to be my last question. Okay. So, you've been here for 8 months.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite Eugene moment?
My favorite Eugene moment. Well, if I can weave a few moments together, my favorite Eugene thing is, it comes back to my son, right? It comes back to, I haven't seen him in the wild yet, so that's been good, right? Like we have not crossed paths, but to be able to watch him flourish here, and then for me to be professionally challenged and to be able to, go skiing with him and, my wife, and then to play some golf once in a while. And so like the whole thing, the whole professional and personal satisfaction that I've gotten being here is what I would say is my favorite Eugene experience, right? It's hard for me to pick just one, but it comes together in kind of, as I reflect on my whole time here, it's truly been special, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a real pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Joe Buck, Vice President for Advancement at the University of Oregon. Thanks so much for watching.